refreshing my screen, and we're going to start our presentation. Make sure I got everything prepped I need to prep. Welcome to Rotary, everyone. Right here. Today is September 30th. Our guest speaker this week is Dorcy Prosser. Thank you to Brooke Guthman and actually Brad Austin for filling in for Brooke for being our greeter today. Sharon Harris Johnson, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Almost messed up my first duty. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sharon. It's time for our moment of reflection. Once again, we're going to go right back over to Sharon.
Yep, I signed up for it all. This is a Franciscan saying, a blessing. I know we don't endorse any kind of religion, so I've changed it a little bit. But I thought it was very good. My friend Gail Pesavento had put this on Facebook yesterday. May you be blessed with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May you be blessed with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain to joy. And may you be blessed with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in this world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done.
Thank you, Sharon. Now it's song time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it's time for one of everybody's favorites.
That spelled Rotary. B-A-R-Y. No, like to see. From north to south, east to west, these are best who serves the best. R-B-A-R-Y. That spelled Rotary.
All right. One verse of R-O-T-A-R-Y. Now it's time for the introduction of our guests. Shane Hurwitz, would you please introduce our guest this week?
Yes, the Rotary Club of Carbondale is always welcoming guests, and today, other than our guest speaker, we have visiting Rotarian Arbeck. So welcome to our guest today.
Thank you, Shane. It's time for some club announcements. Thank you to those who filled out the duty poll for this week. The doodle polls are posted here. I can put them in the chat a little bit later on in the meeting, and they should be in our follow-up as well. So please make sure you're signing up for our virtual clipboard here for duties for each week. Thank you to Sharon for filling in for filling up the roster for this week. 100 Little Things update. We have 31 projects that are completed. Recently completed were 100 rolls of toilet paper by Gayla Borgnoni and 100 apples by Gil Kronig. A number of other projects are underway. Shane, do you have any other updates for the 100 Little Things this week?
Nope, I think everything that you got on the screen is the current data that I have.
Perfect. Other active service projects we have going on right now, the Warming Center Lunch Project. Today is beef and bean burritos, Spanish rice, nachos and cheese, and everybody's favorite dessert, churros. Gail, do you have any updates for the Material Support Project?
Oh, I think I may start going to the Warming Center on Wednesdays for lunch instead of Zooming in here. Their lunch is better than mine. I talked to Carmelita just briefly. The same things that have been on the list for quite some time are still needs. Most recently, she added plastic storage bins of all sizes that they could use. You probably have seen a couple of the advertisements on television that she's had recently, asking for contributions and acknowledging and thanking local groups or individuals who have contributed already. So I think they could continue to use the same things that we've talked about before: food, cleaning supplies, cash, plastic storage bins, anything that you might be inclined to contribute. I know she said, Rick, you had contributed something recently to the Warming Center too. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Gail. We're also in the midst of our foundation donation challenge. Brad Austin stepped up for the month of September. Sharon Harris Johnson, once again, we see your name on the slideshow today. Sharon's got the month of October. Linda Meredith's got November, and we're all the way through May of 2021. Who's next? So for those of you that are aware, every month during this year, we've had a different Rotarian matching our foundation donations up to $100. So please, if your name's not on the list and you can consider it, please consider making that contribution. Some district news. The membership, we have a district membership challenge. Whichever club gains the most members by December 31st will get a contribution from the district. And additionally, in our own district, or in our own club, Shane is doing a donation on behalf of the Rotarian that brings in the most new members this year. Club development, actually this is tomorrow now, the Provisional Club in Murfreesboro has a meeting. Other district news happening, we had, there was a district-wide cleanup on the Mississippi River this past week. So I saw some pictures of Rotarians out there doing a great job cleaning up over in Grand Tower. So Rotarians are in action, and even during COVID, when everybody's locked down, we're still moving forward. Rotary International news. I guess I should ask Shane, do you have any other district news, or do you have any other district news?
No, I have no other news. That's good job, Rick.
Okay, Rotary International news this week. We're going to continue keeping the polio fight center stage, talk about it with others. We are very close to eradicating polio worldwide, and as we've talked about the last few weeks, Africa is certified polio free. So thank you all for your continued efforts and support in the polio eradication efforts. Now it's time for some of your good news. We've got some good news to share this week.
I have good news. I just had my birthday on Sunday, and I'm dropping a check in the mail for that good news. And I will just say that I'm 10 years younger than Gil.
I had made a call to Will and to Judy earlier, and how they're doing. They're doing really well. Will had just been to the doctor for his 6-month eye checkup. He's doing fine. They just, like everybody else, feels isolated. But I wanted to bring you up to date on him.
I saw Will and Judy a couple of weeks ago. I meant to mention last week, and again, as Jim said, Will seemed to be doing well. I did encourage him to get their computer repaired so he can get back in business and help with our funding situation for our foundation. That we're always in need of additional contributions, and he's more effective at that than I am. But he is doing well.
I've got some good.
Go ahead, Carl.
I'm sorry, Dr. Lacey. Go on. I insist. Lacey, you first.
Age before beauty. My good news, I think it has a little tinge of other news, but it's really good news. When you live long enough that one of your children retires with 43 years of service, that's pretty good news. My son is retiring. He has just left work this moment for ending 43 years with the SIU physical plant. So if you see him and know him, congratulate. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't follow that. Hard to follow. I've got some good news. The official United States Census ends today, September 30th. Jackson County at 59%. Carbondale, specifically, last time I checked, as of yesterday, was at 58%, and they were expecting with the university's efforts to get those names of individuals who were living off campus, who were enrolled on, who would have been here on April 1st, to have that final percentage be above 60% and stuff. So it wasn't as good as 2010. But it is not as bad as at first rated it would be.
This is Cindy speaking. If we were together in person, I know we would always be fined if we were in the media. And I have been interviewed 3 or 4 different times by different news agencies, radio programs, et cetera, over the last week or so about the death of Justice Ginsburg and the Supreme Court nomination process. So while that's not happy news for me, it is something for which we would normally be fined, and we'd be contributing to the foundation. So I'll make my contribution.
This is Ginger, and I just kind of wanted to remind everybody, I know with COVID, we're all looking for things that safe things or places to go. And I just wanted to remind everybody that on October 17th, the Bald Knob Cross of Peace is having their fall colors. And it's going to be a little different this year because it's more of a drive-through. There's going to be a few vendors and things like that. But if you're looking for maybe something to do at a beautiful place, a beautiful venue, October 17th, I do have 25, it costs $5 a vehicle to go through. So I've got 25 of them. If anybody would like them or knows of somebody or wants to take somebody who needs to get out due to COVID, I've got them. Just let me know, and you're welcome to them.
This is Linda. Faith, Carl, and I, since last week, have registered 39 voters at Victory Dream Center, SIU Student Center, SIU Student Support Services Building, and the Carbondale Public Library. We have 3 more voter registration drives before the deadline next week on October 6th.
Great.
As a follow-up of Linda's news, I was 4th this year in line to vote on the first day, and I have never seen such a turnout. It's usually me and my buddy and a few other people, but I knew when I got there, and there were already people ahead of us, and I think I counted like 26 people before the doors of the courthouse opened to vote on the very first day. And sadly, it was a little chaotic because the county clerk's office wasn't expecting that. So some people had to wait up to an hour, even 40 and some 45 minutes, because they didn't have that many polling places available. But the deputies were working very diligently to try to keep people safe while they were in line, and it's good to see people enthusiastic about voting.
I have a few good news. I graduated last week with my Delta Leadership Institute Executive Academy for the state of Illinois. So I was super excited about that. Also, since I wasn't here last week, that's what I was doing last week, but my husband and I started renovations on one of our storefronts uptown that I was kind of reported to you about a few months ago on the one storefront, and we have a hair salon coming. So my husband's been doing some work on that. And then also with our Revitalize 62966 project, we're getting our first mural downtown in a few weeks. It's going to be done by a local artist to really start the public art beautification downtown.
This is Jerry speaking. Keep Carbondale Beautiful is having its fall tree sale on Saturday, 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock downtown at the pavilion. So a lot of shrubs, a lot of trees, and we could use your support. All of the social distancing will be there. Everything's outdoors and there's a lot of space, but this is just a good tradition that we hope that you participate in. If you need trees or shrubs, or even if you don't, buy them for somebody else. So, thank you.
So I've got some
I
good
was, good news. I was, received training as an election judge last night. So coming to a precinct near you.
First, I want to say great job to everybody that's been registering folks to vote. If it weren't for voter registration drives, I probably wouldn't have been registered to vote when I was 18 years old. I didn't know how to register. There's a lot of folks out there that still don't know how to do that. And it really is an easy process. So thank you to those of you that are doing that. I have good news and then a shameless plug. Good news, we had, through all of COVID, we've been shut down with a lot of our scouting adventures. And this past weekend, we had 104 people come out to camp at different time slots. Some of them camped over the weekend. Some of them just came for a couple hours. But we had about 100 people complete a 5-mile hike around camp and get to enjoy the outdoors. It was absolutely beautiful, and the event was a great success. I have heard no reports of anybody with any infection issues. In fact, we had people that called beforehand and said, "Hey, I'm registered and I'm not coming because I got a call and I had a potential exposure." So we had people who self-quarantined to keep everybody else safe. So that was great. And then this weekend, even though we can't have our traditional fall fun event out at camp with our Cub Scouts and 500 people as we normally would, we'll have a series of events on the day throughout the day Saturday. And if anybody's got kids or grandkids that are under the age of 10, for new folks, it's only $5 for the kids to come out and do archery and BB and do a STEM activity and a hike and come out to camp for 2 hours. There's no charge for parents. So if anybody's interested, like I said, give me a shout and I'll make sure we get you signed up. Does anybody else have some good news? We had a lot here today. Okay, we'll move right along here on the schedule then. Sergeant at Arms, the floor is yours, Mr. White.
Okay, well, thank you, Linda Meredith, for being honest about your big event. Happy birthday. A lot of good things I heard. Rick had, donated.
Gail, you're muted.
I sound better when I'm muted, actually. Lots of good things. Linda Meredith, thank you for stepping forward and sharing your birthday celebration with us. Happy birthday to you. Heard a lot of other good things, Rick, and your donations to the Warming Center. Cindy with continuing the card program for children. And Cindy for your interviews recently. Congratulations. And I'm sure Jim will be glad to receive your fine. Ginger, for your generosity in the ball knob color drive-through passes. Faith, Carl, and Linda for working with registration of voters, and Faith for helping with the election judges. If anyone else is needing a credit, just be aware there are several blood drives coming up. One as recently as this coming Friday, and then several next week, all in the Carbondale and Murfreesboro area and Carterville area. So if you need a get out of jail pass, that's one you can take advantage of, and just let me know.
Thank you, Gail. Now it's time for our guest speaker. I did send out a handout earlier in the morning, so if you didn't get that, let me know and I will make sure to email that to you again. But we have Miss Dorcy Prosser from the League of Women Voters. And I will stop my share. Ms. Prosser, the floor is yours.
You heard from that. Hello, I am Dorcy Prosser of the League of Women Voters of Jackson County. As I see some of your names, you perhaps have already heard my presentation on voting options for 2020. I've altered it a little bit, particularly with getting my own vote by mail ballot, and have some information about that that's a little bit newer. But first, I want to thank the Rotary for inviting me. Dr. Flowers contacted me about 2 months ago, and that's about the time I started giving this presentation. I think certainly in the last 2 months, none of us have turned on the TV, the radio, or accessed print media, and you haven't heard those buzzwords of vote by mail. Certainly have become quite the controversy. So we'll get into that relates to the handout that you have. I suspect, being a very informed audience and that many of you have already voted, it may be old information, but perhaps I can give a little perspective, not only vote by mail and voting options in Illinois, but a little more broadly as to perhaps why it is such a national controversy. Okay, so first I want to talk about the precipitation as to the League of Women Voters had their annual meeting in June. And we decided that an important thing, by June, we'd all been staying home. It was very evident. Some of us were very anxious about getting out. The legislature had acted to provide voting options that were more remote and a little different than what we're used to. So we decided to make presentations and make it our goal to get the information out about the options. Again, many of you are probably already aware of that. But let me first tell you about what was in this Illinois law that was passed signed in June, but many of the requirements were even known sooner. My information comes from reading the law. It also comes from a PowerPoint provided to me by Representative Terry Bryant, Republican, and she got this PowerPoint from Democratic Senator Julie Morrison. So the information comes, though the parties maybe didn't agree on what came out, it was a very bipartisan giving of information to me. So let me just tell you a few things about how the election is different in 2020. First of all, November 3rd will be a state holiday. I'm retired, so it's not a big deal, but if you work for the state or work for the schools, no work. The original idea was to free up some of those places to be polling places. What else in the Illinois law? Some of it's a little surprising. 16-year-olds can be election judges as of now, legally. Whether that will be accessed or not, but I know as an election judge of that certain age, there was a look for many more election judges that were younger. March 17th primary, I was an election judge then, there was total non-preparation for that event. I worked with election judges who had never done this before, and so hopefully the idea was to prepare better for 2020 in the November election. So what else? Well, as Sharon Johnson pointed out, voting starts on the 24th. They were able to start processing the application to vote by mail much earlier. Now, many of you, if you had voted in the last 3 elections, you already got that application. It was sent out, according to this law, to anybody who had voted in 2018, 19, or 20. How is that different? Well, it's all really is absentee voting, but for 2020, you didn't have to first ask for the application like you did in a typical election. That is if you had voted in the last 3 elections. So as many of you probably know, it's a 2-step process in Illinois. First apply and then get your ballot. What else was in this law? It provides for drop boxes. In Jackson County, I already know not only a number of friends like Ms. Johnson who've already gone over to vote, but who've already driven their ballots over to the drop box that's on the west side of the county courthouse. No postage required if you do that. Okay, and what else does the law provide for? Well, one thing, it allows them to process the vote by mail ballots before election day. What does that mean, process? It means they can open the envelopes, they can verify the signatures, and they can put in their records that you have voted. So if you've signed up at show up at another place, they'll say it shows that you voted. That's a little different in 2020. All of these things that I've mentioned will sunset after the 2020 election. Drop boxes, they were an option. So tiny bit of confusion is that even in Illinois, there were a few options of how to do things. The counties were not required to have a drop box. According to NPR, only 50% of the 102 counties in Illinois have chosen to do that. Certainly it's an expense. It requires monitoring. It requires taking the ballots on a daily basis. And one more thing, it did require that typically we have 5 election judges at a federal election. In Jackson County, as you know, we only have 60,000 people. The law says that if you have 250,000 or fewer people, you only need to have 3 election judges. So I'm not sure how that's going to turn out in Jackson County, but we're not required to have any more than 3 election judges. So voting options for 2020. I know this is an informed group. I'll refer to my handout. I'll skip over some of it. But so according to the handout, so what do? What are your options? Well, the hot topic is vote by mail, whether it's strongly advocating for or against. Controversy, a little bit later, I'll talk about not only controversy, but a little excitement. Like in Pennsylvania, they're talking about naked ballots. What does that mean? I think one thing I have learned in this process of learning more about voting options is that when you talk about vote by mail, it is not the same thing in Illinois as it is in Pennsylvania, as it is in South Carolina. So a little bit of it is, as I know you're an informed group, is perhaps, if not knowing the specifics, that you will at least understand that it doesn't happen the same way in every state. So what are your options? I'm going to start with vote by mail first, because that's what I have the most to say about, and I'll go with the other more familiar ones. So vote by mail, 2-step process. You have to apply. You send in your application or do it online to the county clerk, if you're in Jackson County, so that would be Mr. Frank Bird. And then they will send you a ballot. I know I've already gotten my ballot. So you have to make sure you can do those 2-step processes. One thing about the Illinois law is it maybe wasn't as thought out as it should have been. You can apply to vote by mail until October 29th. Well, it might be cutting things a little bit too short. We know Election Day is by the 3rd. You have to get your ballot, vote it, and have it postmarked or returned by the close of Election Day on November 3rd. So if you wait until the 29th, are you going to get that ballot? Will it get back? You know, that was one thing in the law that maybe wasn't as thought out as it could be. Another thing is that if it's postmarked by November 3rd, it should count. This is my personal opinion. We live in a low population county. Whether or not there's going to be so many ballots that are received because they were mailed on the 3rd and they have 2 weeks to be received, chances are we're going to get them all and counted here in Jackson County. But imagine Chicago. Imagine someplace where they get 1 million people that waited until November 3rd. That's a lot of processing. You got to open, you got to look, you got to validate the signatures. So, you know, possibly it will be a problem in other counties. So vote by mail. I got my packet. Did you get yours? There's 4 parts in it. So if you decide to vote by mail, what will be in it? Your ballot, which will look very familiar. And then there'll be what they call the secrecy sleeve. I was going to hold it up. Oh my gosh, there's 4 pieces in here. You'll have to read it backwards. It's a secrecy sleeve. That'll be in there. And there's something called the ballot certification sheet. It's long. It's in small print. We all want confidence in the election. So I think the important practical thing from my point of view is it's really important to read this entire ballot certification sheet. One thing that's notable, your signature that's absolutely required on the ballot certification form for Jackson County. You don't get to the signature part until the very bottom of the form. I hope everybody reads to the bottom of the form. Just like an in-person election, you have to sign. If you go to in-person election, it's usually in a large blank space, bracketed. That's not the way you will get this one. Again, we want confidence in this election. Read this. If you have any questions, I really, really encourage you to contact the county clerk. I can't tell you how many people that have called me once they've seen this. So I think we want to avoid any confusion at all about this mail-in process. So any questions whatsoever? So important. First, be sure that you sign. What happens when you sign? According to the law, 3 election judges will look at your signature. They will decide whether it matches your signature on file, the one that you signed when you registered to vote. Some people are very concerned, you know, we don't usually have 3 people look at it. What's the rule? All 3 have to say no. Not all have to say yes, it's you, that it's Mr. Malumbi or Mr. Morse. All 3 have to say that is not your signature. So maybe a little bit of a low bar, but concerns that the signatures will be easily thrown out, I don't think that's a problem. How else could, once you vote your ballot, once you return it by mail or drop box, how else can it be rejected? Well, if you don't seal all these envelopes before you return the ballot to the county clerk, that is cause for rejection, okay? If you're rejected, do you have a second chance? Absolutely, absolutely. That is, if you get your ballot there in time for it to be looked at, for it to be evaluated with your signature, the law requires that within 2 business days you're to be notified and you will get a second chance. So again, this is Illinois. I can't tell you whether this is allowable in other states, but I think you should have confidence in Illinois that you get a second chance, but the important thing is to vote early so that vote by mail ballot that you drop in the mail or that you drop in the drop box, that it gets there and there's time to be counted. The League of Women Voters had a conference meeting with some U.S. Postal Service people that were in Chicago. So not here in Jackson County, but in Chicago, in Illinois. They recommended if you put your vote by mail ballot in the mail, return it by October 19th. So I think that's easy to remember. What has precipitated a lot of this change in the law? That is COVID-19. So return it by October 19th. So again, you can read anything else I have about that on the handout. But again, my main emphasis is pay attention to the directions that you get in your vote by mail ballot. There is quite a lengthy sheet. I hope my frequently asked questions maybe will be helpful and is in a form that maybe is a little more digestible. So again, option 1, vote by mail, long discussion. I'll go on to the 2 other ones very briefly. They're more familiar to you. Of course, your voting option is to go and vote early in person in Jackson County. That's at the Carbondale Civic Center. That starts in mid-October. Also at the SIU Student Center and at the Jackson County Courthouse. You can go vote early there anytime now through November 3rd during their business hours, 8 to 4. As to the specific early voting dates in Carbondale, go ahead and go to the county clerk's website or the League of Women Voters of Jackson County's website for those very specific times. And if for some reason you haven't registered to vote, or you've changed something, your address, your name, to make yourself actually legal, you can go and do that all the way through Election Day. But then you must vote and update your registration information or register to vote at the same day. Again, you can do that also at the early voting site. So I see in terms of opportunities to register and to vote, had all those great voting registration drives done by the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, but opportunities go on, and you can register, you can vote, you can early vote. So that is an option. Lastly, traditional in-person voting. The county clerk's office is tired of me calling. I call them, asking them all kinds of questions. But of course you can vote in person. My last communication is that they will be at all your usual precinct sites. I'm glad to see that Ms. Miller was able to be trained. That's good. I will say, my own personal thing, I have been election judge before. We have not been allowed or invited to come to training. And therefore, I have been pretty persistent about asking the county clerk to provide the experienced election judges, again, this is my personal opinion, to invite us to understand how we can make the actual physical site safe. How do we approach people who do not choose to wear masks, but be clear, maybe the Carbondale ordinance that says you must wear a mask, but no one, absolutely no one can be denied the right to vote if they choose not to wear a mask or that sort of thing. But anyway, I'm hopeful that we'll get further clarification on how to manage the physical voting site to make it as safe as it can be, with cleaning supplies and being as respectful as we can for physical distancing. So with that, I'll just make a colorful comments about voting by mail in other states, and then if there's time for questions. Voting by mail in other states, why is it a controversy? Well, in Pennsylvania, again, I brought up the naked ballots. In Pennsylvania, there's a recent state Supreme Court decision that if you fail to put your signed vote by mail ballot in the secrecy sleeve, if you return it naked, if you return it in the envelope without the secrecy sleeve, you will not have your vote counted and you will not get a second chance. So that kind of thing, you're like, whoa, is it safe? What does it mean? That's Pennsylvania. My understanding, that is not the rule in Illinois. One controversy that's been about, what about fraud? What about ballot harvesting? What I can tell you from my research on other states, there has long been in many states, both red, Republican, and blue, the opportunity for people to collect ballots. Actually, in South Carolina, it's called the voting coordinator. They've long been able to, presumably, as a convenience to people who can't get out and vote in person, go to perhaps a nursing home, an assisted living site, or to a friend who is unable to get out, and have their vote by mail ballot put in their envelope, but given to you or me to deliver. Well, that's been going on forever. You can do that. It has been required in a number of states. It's just that you say, I, the voter, gave permission to you, the delivery person, and that we both sign. And that's happened in South Carolina. That's happened in Illinois. I can't speak to how much this has been used or abused, but what I would say is that the opportunity to do things collectively has been available for a long time. One last thing about fraud or no fraud is it's safe. Gosh, the third thing. I'm struggling here. Forgot it right now. Maybe it'll come up. But anyway, there's another option. I just want you to know that it's different. Oh, I know, universal ballots. When we hear people say ballots are being sent everywhere, they're coming. Well, no, not in Illinois, only if you request it. A number of states you must request and then receive. Absolutely, there's, I don't know, 8 or 10 states in which if you are a registered voter, you will get a ballot. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, it's not for me to say. But again, when they're saying ballots are sent everywhere, certainly a vast minority of states are automatically sending the ballots out. And I can tell you that. One last thing, I'll give you a pitch for the League of Women Voters. We're not doing any in-person forums, but we've had online forums for candidates. Tonight, we will have a candidate forum for the 115th Representative District. This is the seat being vacated by Terry Bryant. We will have our candidates for this representative for the Illinois legislature. You can partake of this online Zoom event by going to the Carbondale Public Library website, scroll down below candidate forum. There's a register button. And if you punch on that, you fill out a form and they will send you a Zoom invitation. So if you would like to learn more about the candidates for the 115th, tune in tonight. Go ahead, go to the library to register. But if you don't want to do it live, or if you're interested in our past forums, go to YouTube and the Carbondale Public Library YouTube channel, and you'll see there a candidate forum we did for the Jackson County State's Attorney and the Jackson County Circuit Clerk, and also there for judicial candidates for the 5th District, Supreme Court, and Illinois Appellate. So with that, I will conclude my talk.
Thank you, Dorcy. I know we're going to have a number of questions. I saw Faith had one already, but I really appreciate you sharing the information about how Illinois' ballots are done with the secrecy sleeve and other things that are in place there, especially after reading the article yesterday about what happened in the Bronx, that there were 100,000 voters that were sent the wrong return envelopes, and they have to resend all of that. So it's nice to see that Illinois has things, or at least to this point, has things under control. So I guess we'll start with Faith, and then I'm unable to see everybody's screens all at once. If you have a question or comment, feel free to jump right in. Go ahead, Faith.
Hi, Dorcy. Thank you for your presentation. We also had a presentation on early voting and vote by mail, and I'll be more than happy to share that link. But with the training last night, I asked the very same question that you were concerned about as far as the mask, and if you encounter a voter who refuses to wear their mask or whatever. Frank and Leanne were both going to check into that because they did mention about wearing any type of t-shirts that had specific party or candidate's name on it, that they were going to politely, they suggested we politely ask them to step out, either take the shirt off, cover it up some type of way. And then I brought up about the mask and also mentioned that Carbondale, the city of Carbondale, has the mask ordinance. And so then other question about, well, if you're not going to deny a voter, you know, for wearing their shirt, you know, if they comply, then what are you going to do about the mask? And they really couldn't specifically say, so they're going to check into it to see what they'll be able to do. They also had in the packet or in the box, along with the other sanitization materials, masks to provide for a voter who presented who did not have a mask. And so I would hope that that would be sufficient enough. I mean, if you're not going to wear a mask, at least wear a mask to vote. And then you can take it off when you get outside. So it's like we should not have this big of a deal where we have to, you know, arrest people or fine people. You know, just wear the dang mask, cast your vote, and get out. But they are going to look into it.
Well, what I would say is that I've already read articles and I have urged our county clerk that this information doesn't come from him. It comes from the state Board of Elections. No person can be denied the vote for refusing. But what I urge, and I'm going to continue, I know the training is this week, so I'll stop bugging the county clerk until next week, but I have asked for just a uniform. What is the script? Maybe I want us in Jackson County, if not the whole state of Illinois, to come across that we are all on the same page, to be as respectful, but to be consistent in the communication about this. Because in my very brief part about how things are different in different states, again, I want to qualify whenever I make a personal opinion. I think there should be a national movement to make elections procedures about vote by mail, deadlines for this or that. It needs to be uniform in this country. And I've certainly learned that. That's become a number of different things. You know, Oregon, who is put out as the state as done remote voting, they started in 1981, but they did come to this very gradually. It was first a local option. It was almost 20 years before they had it as a presidential election, when almost everybody brought their ballot to a drop box or mailed it. But we have had to come to this so quickly in response to COVID, but therefore deadlines shouldn't be different. In Oregon, they have to return their ballot by election day. So if that's the rule, a lot of this controversy about, well, gee, when it comes in late and we want to know on election night could be avoided. I want this to be a teachable moment, I hope, to our country and to our leaders to say, let's avoid this in the future. I know there'll be a lot of argument about how to do it, but let's have faith in our process. I want our children and my grandchildren to have faith in the process.
Dorcy, Ella Lacey.
Hi.
I liked your presentation, both the official and the personal. And I want to ask you a question about postmarking. Is there anything that you're aware of that has come up about verifying whether postmark is something the post office consistently does or not? And I ask that because several years ago, I had a surgery in Chicago and I battled with the insurance company over whether they mailed me something. What I learned in that process through talking with the postmaster of Carbondale and him making phone calls, Mail isn't always postmarked. They do not postmark. My insurance thing that I was sent, I was charged $12,000 because I acted against what I was sent. But with the help of the state attorney general, I recovered 8,000 of that. So I only had to pay 4,000 for a letter that was supposedly sent to me but had no postmark anywhere. What I learned is mail is not always postmarked, and yet I see it in every state or a lot of states. It must be postmarked by a certain date. I've written a letter to Senator Durbin, and strangely, I haven't received a direct reply from him. I usually get a reply to things. Anyway, do you know anything about the issue of postmarking?
I can't speak to that either locally or nationally. My only tiny bit of information comes from this League of Women Voters of Illinois, where we had this question and answer with the post office. Again, they were women that were big supervisors in Chicago, and they didn't speak to that, and I certainly wasn't aware of to ask that question. This was about a month ago. They did say, at least in their area, how they were being very in tune, the people in their post offices, to what is election mail. They were talking about a lot of good people in theirs, but they saw anything that was identified as election mail to put it in a certain place. That's not as specific to your question. In Chicago, the U.S. Post Office even offered training to the election authorities, to the county clerks, about how to design their election mail envelopes so they would be easily identified. That's not exactly that, but it is of concern. You may have read about the lawsuits in New York. There was concern, well, why should we charge people money to return their ballots? Right. So in a very thoughtful way, postage paid. Oops. Postage paid doesn't have a postmark. No. So again, there's been so many teachable moments. I don't know whether they've rectified that in New York, but I did read the article that there's a huge brouhaha over that. So I don't know. Good question, but I can't speak to it specifically. Sorry.
If no one else, I would like to add that Frank Bird mentioned that there is online election judge training. If you go to the website for Jackson County, I believe you clerk recorder, Illinois government clerk recorder, and then anyone who watches the video, takes the test and sends that in, I guess can be put on the list for election judges. They had a minimal amount of people sign up for the session that was supposed to be in Murfreesboro tonight at 6, because they either they had already been trained or they didn't have enough people sign up because of COVID, I guess, but he got special permission to do that. So there's another option, I suppose.
Well, I'd have to say, I'm sorry to hear that. I called and said, I want to come. And I was said, nope, can't come. So, and if you are a new election judge, thank you very much. We need people who have world experience. I've been an election judge for a long time, and even if you quote been trained, once you get there, and more so in this year where I forgot one really important thing about vote by mail thing. This is what's going to come up potentially at in-person voting. You request a vote by mail ballot. It's sent to you and you say, I've changed my mind. What is really critical about this is do not throw that away. Do not destroy it. Don't let the dog eat it. Be sure to bring that ballot either to your early voting site in Carbondale or the courthouse, or bring it to your precinct. Why? You're not going to be denied the right to vote. We have provisional voting in Illinois. So no, you're not going to be denied but if you know anything about provisional ballot, it's a big, long form. It takes a long time. It's a big pain. So that's really important, that if you did request it, hold on to it, but don't hold on to it too long. Either make your decision by October 19th, is what my recommendation would be, or go ahead and hold on to it and then take it to your in-person voting then. So again, the training is available, and I went through that too, but still locally, we have a number of questions to be answered. I work where there's 3. I had questions like, how close am I supposed to sit next to the person? We've got in Jackson County those little voting kiosks that you're right on top of each other. I said, are we supposed, anyway, I won't go into my personal thing, but there's still a lot of questions. I've sent them to our county clerk, and I'm going to be optimistic that he will address them, and I'm glad to hear, Faith, that you brought them up.
Darcy, this is Sharon Lawrence. I just did the training this morning, and there were clearly people there who were experienced election judges. So I don't know why he told you couldn't come.
I got a letter that said it was being reserved for 50 people. That's really, that's why I probably have a little attitude about this.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, there were, for everyone to be safe, but there were still chairs available around the periphery and stuff. So I don't think there were 50 people there.
And even if you've been an election judge, I mean, it was just 6 months. Well, now it gets to be November, it's 8 months. We don't do this for a living. You forget it. And then when you're working with other election judges, particularly if they're new, and if you've not been an election judge, it's clear to understand none of us is the boss of each other. So it takes, I feel, certain skills of working together in a group that really no one is the facilitator, no one is the boss. And it's really important to have the skills to figure out how you're going to work together. And particularly, like I said, in the one place in Jackson County where they have 3 precincts, which is where I've been working, it takes not only coordination with me and my people, but with the other 2 desks. So again, I think it is ideal that we all get the same training at the same time, and then we get a good review. And I'm happy that, again, I really asked the county clerk, and then he did contact the state, and he sent me the link to the video. That was about a month ago. Yeah.
This is Linda. I wanted to address the mask thing. And Dorcy, I got one of those letters encouraging me not to sign up for this training also. But I worked the primary in March, and we didn't have one person who came in the polling place where I worked that didn't wear a mask. And then for the people who worked that precinct, we kind of arranged the room where people would be socially distanced from us. So instead of just having 1 row of tables, we did 2 rows of tables, so people would be further away, that there would be 2 tables between us and the people who came in. So for those people who are working precincts, arranging your room to social distance better, you would want to consider that. Then when I worked the 2016 election, depending on the precinct that you're working in, I worked in a predominantly probably Republican precinct, and did have to talk to 2 people about taking off their Make America Great Again caps. There are signs that says you can't wear those things when you come in to vote, be it a t-shirt, you have to cover it up, or a hat. And so just politely reminding people of those things typically work. So,
thank you. Any other questions? Again, I don't hold myself out as the be-all, end-all expert on this. So like I said, I feel free to call the county clerk's office, and they are the election authority, and that's where you can access some exact advice on any of this.
Thank you, Dorcy. We're very happy to have had you here today, and I think you answered some excellent questions. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Next week, I knew I didn't update something. We've got Chancellor Austin Lane from SIU that will be joining us, followed by Harvey Lane from the VA. We've scheduled all the way through, I believe, the end of the year already. So please, let's all jump on board next week and welcome Chancellor Austin Lane. Maybe we can get him to join our club as well. Hey, hey. Now it's time for the four-way test. Miss Sharon Harris Johnson, once again, coming up for your responsibility for the week. Could you please lead us in the four-way test?
Glad to. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it
the truth? The truth.
second,
is it
Is it
fair to
fair to all concerned?
third, will it
Build goodwill and better friendships.
fourth,
Will it be
Will it
beneficial?
beneficial for all concerned?
Thank you all once again for joining us, and meeting is adjourned. Sorry, playlist. It just kept going on.